Government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
We can meet our destiny to build a land here that will be for all mankind a shining city on a hill.
You're listening to the Liberty Brothers Radio Show, only on Revolution Radio. Now, here are your hosts, Jim White and Jason Van Tatenhove.
The crusade for freedom is your chance and mine to fight communism.
Please hang up and try again.
Hello, and welcome once again to the Liberty Brothers Radio Show. I am, once again, your host, Jason Van Tatenhove, along with my co-host, Jim White. How you doing, Jim?
I'm quite well, my friend. How are you this fine day? It is a beautiful day here in the wonderful state of Montana. The breeze here by my house is actually warm. It's a warm breeze coming through. Feels very nice. Partly cloudy. And I'll tell you one thing: if you've anybody out there has never been to the Great Northwest here, up in the Flathead Valley and surrounding areas in the summertime, it's quite a place. Quite a place, Jason. You do too. Butte's nice too, no doubt about it. But yeah, it's a good day here, my friend. How about you?
It's actually, I'd say one of the first fall feeling days of the year. The aspens are starting to turn. Wasn't sweating too much at work, which is good. But yeah, definitely starting to feel the chill, and yeah.
Hey, if you don't mind me asking about your work there, you're working up in the you're building cabins out in sort of remote areas, right? Is that accurate?
Yeah. It's
okay.
all off grid, so usually there's a solar array, a wind turbine, and that's the electricity you guys have. But you'd be amazed with the solar arrays they have now. We're able to power all the power tools we need, and it's pretty cool.
Speaking of off grid, I'm going to give a preview. I believe next Friday we're scheduled to be off grid and at Rich Sheban's place out there in northern Montana, north of the Flathead Valley here. And he is an off grid guy, and we're going to be doing some video work out there with Rich. So looking forward to that. I hope the weather stays as nice as it is this weekend.
Well, this weekend actually here is supposed to get a little cooler, but today we've got a great show coming up for you. We have on a couple great guests. For those of us who've been listening to us for the last week, know that I've kind of been on a research mission, trying to learn as much as I can about chemtrails and HAARP and the weather modification and everything kind of related to that. I kind of had a revelation over the last weekend with that weather pattern that came through, and I saw a HAARP bubble on the radar pattern there, and started just looking into things. And my journey has led me to meet these guests that we're bringing on today. First of which is going to be Billy Hayes, who is known as the HAARP guy. He's one of the original engineers on the HAARP project, building the antenna array. And boy, I've talked to him a few times, and he really knows what he's talking about, and seems to be a very awake, he's just a treasure trove of knowledge, and I'm real thankful he's able to pass some of that on to us, and hopefully to our listeners as well. And then we have Elana Freeland, who is the author of the new book, Chemtrails, HAARP, and the Full Spectrum Dominance of Planet Earth. And this is kind of the book on what is really going on. She really connects all the dots and lays things out from the chemtrails to everything. So everything's looking good. So let's go ahead, and we might as well bring them in right now. I just got a message that everyone's good, so we will see what we can't do. I'm going to bring Billy on here first, and then we'll bring on Elana. So let's see here.
Wow. Excellent work, Jason. Excellent work. Sounds like I'm very excited. Very excited about the show today.
All right. Well, we've got Billy on with us, and hold on, Billy. Are you there?
I'm here.
Awesome.
I'll be muted.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and bring Elana on, and we'll be good to go. So we'll try to keep it from... Oh, didn't like it. I think she's actually got to add me. Let me send her a quick message.
I'll drag her in. I'll drag her
Oh,
in.
that'd be great. Thanks, Billy. All right, while we're waiting for Elana to come on, we're getting her on just before she's about to start on a book tour, which she's going to be starting on September 10th in Dallas, New Mexico, and will continue through Santa Fe, Camp Love Wave, Dusmar, California, Shasta, Ashland, Oregon, Grass Pass, Bend, Oregon, Sisters, Oregon, and then the Global March Against Chemtrails is where I think it's ending up. So if you are in any of those areas, definitely check out the book signing.
Billy, welcome to the show today. Thanks so much for joining us. This is Jim.
Hi, Jim. How are you doing today? Well, Elana just popped back out. I just had her online.
Gotta love Skype with live radio. Well, we'll continue to try to get her on. While we do that, maybe Billy, you can. I know there's so much more to you than the intro I had given. So if you could please, in your own words, kind of describe your background as best you can, and what you would like to tell our listeners about yourself, and how you came about having the knowledge that you do about the HAARP systems and whatnot.
Okay. Well, when I was a kid, I was a boy of troubles. I got involved into a school for boys at Marianna, Florida, which is now termed the White House Boys. And it was a detention school for boys, or we had a different word for it in those days. And this school was set up to profile young men that were under their care. And in previous days, this school had a bunch of boys that just turned up missing. And we tried to open up cases of searching for these boys. Nowadays, my principal at that time got me out of the program, but in doing so, I had already been profiled and was already part of the program, which we didn't understand in those days. But at that school, during the last 2 years, they have dug up some 50 graves so far, identified as boys missing at that school. And that school was part of the MK Ultra profiling system. And it's just a matter of information not released yet. You can look it up. It's called the Marianna White House Boys. You can see my picture as a little dude of 12 years old back in those days. But due to my affiliation on base at Eglin Air Force Base, my father was in charge of the construction and communications at a site called C6, which is now called the Space Fence. And my indoctrination into being a cleaner back in those days was taken there with a company called Vitro on base at Eglin. And I did not understand that I was part of a very unique system within the government. My life was nothing but this program, and this program was so compartmentalized that you never knew really what was going on in the world outside the world they put in front of you. So I didn't realize the things that I was involved in were part of they weren't normal. It wasn't like, my life was not like the normal life. Excuse me, I have to take a short medical break here for a second.
No problem, Billy. All right, well, we'll continue to try to bring Elana on as well. I'm messaging her through Skype, so hopefully we will have her on or have her call in and can move forward with that. So I'll go ahead and put a promo up from the publisher, it's a quick video promo of the book that Elana has written, and we'll get that up into the chat room for you guys.
You know, Billy, if you're there, it sounds like your life was your life may have been spared by getting you out of that situation there when you were 12.
As a matter of fact, Horace B. Kenny, the principal of the high school that I eventually went to, he and my father were totally responsible for exiting me from that program at that time. I would have became one of those graves due to the way I was back then. I was a wild card, and I had weird interests. I'm also trying to pull a lot into myself.
Okay. I was just going to ask if you could try to do that again. So I've also sent her my. I've got a call online that she can call as well. So I sent her that number. Alrighty.
Billy, let me ask you a question. I've done some research. I'm no expert by any means on the MK Ultra program. Do you really think that program was completely closed down like it was claimed to be, or do you think that some of the elements of that MK Ultra are still being utilized in modern day?
Absolutely, it was never totally closed down. The government does this little trick. They put different names on things. They make different companies. They put it under different pretenses. It's billed through different programs with DARPA. Once it's under DARPA's cover, they can change it to anything. I'll give you, for instance, I never realized that I was part of their program until after Oklahoma City bombing. I was embedded with other companies, legitimate companies that had contracts with the government, and did not realize at that time these companies were being monitored through contracts. And I was part of that monitoring system. I didn't realize that.
Are you familiar, if I may ask you real quick, Billy, are you familiar with a woman by the name of Kathy O'Brien? I read a book she put out called Transformation, I believe it was called. And she made some pretty serious allegations in that book. Are you familiar with her or that book, Billy?
Absolutely. Kathy O'Brien and I were together in Pensacola, Florida. Her handler at that time was a gentleman by the name of Mark Phillips, who was also my handler at that time. And we lived together there for several years. She and I had a baby together that I never knew about until some 5 years ago. She never got to see the baby again until 5 years ago. And that was through Mark Phillips. Mark Phillips is now her deprogrammer.
Some of the claims that were made in there, Billy, about the music industry were just blew me away. I mean, I'd say it made me really think that the world that we think we know or what we see is really a far cry from what really goes on behind the scenes. I tell you, that was a shocking wake-up call to read that book, I have to admit.
Well, you heard it all before. I mean, everything from playing certain records backwards, hearing different things, subliminal messaging, the whole works. I mean, this whole MK Ultra, like I stated before, it's done nothing more than become a different program of higher technology.
All right, Billy. Well, I definitely want to return to that, but we do have Elana on the line now. And Elana, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Hi, thanks. Sorry I didn't hear the ring. But I'm a novice at Skype.
Oh, I've been using it for a while, and I still mess it up all the time. So it is pretty much par for course. So not a problem at all. So Elana, thank you so much for coming on the show. Gave you a bit of a brief intro, but I'd like you to maybe tell our listeners a little bit about yourself. And you have a new book that's just come out. I've actually been reading it. And, I just feel it is an incredible book in that it takes all these different parts that, some people may know just a certain part of it, may know about the chemtrails, may know about the Morgellons, may know about the, some of the full spectrum dominance items. But you really do a great job of tying it all together and putting it all in one book. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you about to wanting to write this book and what motivated you to put all this great information together?
Yes, I actually had been researching chemtrails and HAARP separately for years. I wrote a series of fictional histories about America's what's happened to America since John Kennedy's assassination, and to do that, I had to research for maybe 10 years into what Peter Dale Scott calls deep politics of America. So I already was up to speed, but I had them separate in my mind. And I think the first time I read about chemtrails, about HAARP, was when Nick Begich and Gene Manning wrote their book back in '95. When Adam Parfrey, the publisher of Feral House, approached me to ask me if I thought I could write a book on chemtrails, he knew I'd researched a lot of things. We'd had some contact through some editing I did for him of James Shelby Downard's life, a book called Carnivals of Life and Death, I think. I think that's the name that Adam chose. So I looked at my files and I was fascinated by it. I had also become quite close friends with Clifford Carnicom, as destiny would have it. I certainly didn't become friends with Clifford primarily because of his involvement in studying chemtrails, but I was living in Santa Fe, as were Clifford and his wife Carol at that time, and we would have breakfast every couple of weeks, and Clifford and I would go deeply into the subject of Morgellons. I became part of Clifford's saliva test group, part of his blood sample group. I looked under the microscope and saw the little Morgellons guy sticking its head into my erythrocytes, my red blood cells, and sucking out the iron. Adam knew I knew Clifford, and I assumed that might have been part of the reason that he asked me if I thought I could write the book. So I spent a year and a half doing the research. A lot of it, as you know, is on the web because this is really as we used to call it in journalism, a breaking story. And so I was able to reread all the books that were out, which weren't that many. Will Thomas's Chemtrails Confirmed. I reread Nick and Gene's book. I read Jerry Smith's books, one on HAARP and one on weather warfare. I read a series of essays on the web, and I already had collected quite a bit of data, so I began to put the story together. And I have my own research technique. I have a master's in historiography, and I began to see how closely intertwined chemtrails and HAARP, the HAARP tech, not the installation in Gakona, Alaska alone. That's only one tiny installation. There are many, many installations, and so, as Billy knows better than I, but I put them together and began to weave a story that had, at that point, really been sort of scattered all over the internet, sort of like Osiris's body, making no pun on the word ISIS now, which has come back into the press. So once that was done, and I was able to do a few revisions, the book went to press and came out in June, and it's been selling very, very well. I'm getting ready to do a book tour right now, next month.
We mentioned that a little bit before you came on. We talked about some of the dates and places that you'll be. How has the response been? I know I was able to just download it on my iPad and read it there. It seems like it's got such great information that they might want to suppress it a bit. Have you had any problems with that?
Well, I don't think it's the time for that. I mean, there was a time in the 90s when there was a lot of paranoia and a real lid was being put on the whole HAARP subject. I've told the story on other radio interviews about when I was reading Nick and Jean's book and was at a substitute teaching job up here in the Pacific Northwest near a joint base, a joint Army and Air Force base. And at the table in the faculty lounge, 2 male teachers sat down, and there was another woman sitting at the table who never raised her face to my knowledge. And these 2 men asked me what I was reading. It looked interesting. They saw the cover of the book, and I began to tell them the little tiny bit I knew about HAARP at that point. And then that was that. But the next day, I had an Army chopper over my roof that stayed up there for about 5 minutes. And I assumed that it was after that that my phone began to have one of those click-click taps, and my life became a little bit of too much of a fishbowl for me. So now, this is 10 years later, this is 20 years later, it's a done deal. It's really a done deal. So I don't have the level of paranoia that I once had by sticking my nose into some of these national security issues. I think now I even may have done the powers that be, and that would be, in my mind, the U.S. Air Force, the U.S. Navy, and certainly all the intelligence community and the military-industrial complex. I may have done them a favor by consolidating all the information so that people can be informed of some of the core issues that are already in the air. So I don't think it's, well, I could be surprised. Where's some wood I can knock on? I think that I've written what I call a meat and potatoes book. It is the go-to answer book for some of the simple questions that come up from people and the scoffing that comes up about being a conspiracy theorist. There are over 600 footnotes in the book. I admit I probably overdid it, but I really wanted to make it very clear that this is a serious issue. Many of the documents that I quote in the book are military source. They're open source. They're on the net. You can read them. All of them, of course, use the future tense as if we will be doing this, the same way that all the geoengineering people like David Keith and Caldera are saying. They're all saying, well, we may have to do this. I think just recently it's begun to come out that some geoengineering, some aerosols are actually in the air, are happening. So slowly they're creeping out with the story. And in the book, as I say, it's meat and potatoes. I don't go into a whole other section of this, which Billy is tutoring me in the hardware of, that I've already been asked by the publisher to write another book. He took 2 chapters out of this book that he felt would be just too overwhelming given all the material I had already presented. And those will be the core of the next book, in which I really thoroughly look at the most crucial aspect of this whole thing, is the ionized atmosphere that is being used for communications of many colors, many stripes, by the military and intelligence for the sake of what I consider to be a transhumanist future.
Wow, those are the 2 chapters I really want to read then.
I know, and I've been criticized a couple times by some editors of magazines that, well, we already know what you've said. Well, you know, the publisher's target audience, and I respect him for it, was the person who doesn't know how it all is fitting together. And it is to dispel a lot of rumors and misperceptions. And even, you know, Billy is still correcting me on certain things, which I'm very grateful for, because I've basically put this together from a researcher's point of view who has a biology background, but I certainly do not have a physics background, and I certainly do not have the wealth of experience that Billy has.
You know, I have a question that could probably be answered by either one of you. I talk about Nick Bigich. Begich. I saw an interview with him, I don't know, maybe a year, 18 months ago. And if I remember correctly in the interview, he was talking about HAARP, and I like him. I like Nick Begich. He had said, if I remember correctly, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that they can actually, with HAARP, they can actually, I guess, implant stuff inside people's skull, inside their head. If I remember, is that accurate? Are you familiar with that at all? Either one of you?
Subliminal suggestions is what you're talking about, and yeah, it's a very feasible thing. The military has been working on it since early '60s. It was part of a program at Herbert Field, which is part of Eglin Air Force Base. Their psychology psych department maintains that they work with subliminal suggestions via radio waves. And that is part of the old HAARPing program, was part of the experimentalism. Everybody has to understand, HAARP was an experiment, and now it's no longer HAARP. Now the experiment is over, although there are functions of HAARP that are still negotiable by colleges. MIT is one of the biggest ones who wants in on taking this further. The things that came out of HAARP, the technology that came out, the Kokona system, is just bewildering. It just went from the ideal of tomography for ARCO, which was Bernard Easton's, he was president of that company at one time, in searching for minerals within the realm of Alaska. It turned out a worldwide coverage of not only that, but other things, of being able to see into the ground, to see into under the water, to see things in the sky beyond radar, from over the horizon type radar systems. And it just continued. It continued from one thing into another. They realized they could ionize the atmosphere to the point they could use the atmosphere as an amplifier, just like a vacuum tube amplifier, that they could increase what power they were using until not gigawatts, but it would come down to terawatts of power.
Now, Billy, for our listeners, can you break down kind of the beginning of the HAARP program, kind of talk about what they originally intended it for, and then I know that HAARP these days is considered fairly old. It's kind of a few generations back compared to some of the new systems they're bringing online now. Can you talk a little bit about what HAARP originally was and what they've been using it for, and then move into what we're dealing with these days, which kind of goes far beyond what they were originally doing, if I'm thinking correctly?
Okay, well, in the mid 80s, Bernard Eastland filed several patents to follow up on his introduction to looking into mineral rights in Alaska with a company called ARCO, Atlantic Richfield Company. It's and there was 30 participants in this company. It wasn't a huge company, but it was a way he could do experimentation without going into the ADM agreements that were applied between the United States and many other countries, where they said they wouldn't do this, they wouldn't do that. It was a way of getting around that agreement. And as he produced more and more information, the Navy and the Air Force took note of what was going on, and they became interested into the same things. When they found out that there was density changes in the atmosphere with this unit, they wanted even more, to the point that they took the original site. The original site was set up actually just outside Anchorage, I hate this computer. Outside of Anchorage. In fact, I just put up a picture of it on my Facebook this morning. If you want to take a look at it.
Yeah, let's have your Facebook page, Billy, if you don't mind.
Oh, it's Billy Hayes 67548.
I'll go ahead and put it in the chat room.
But in as much that Eastland's information was getting further and further and further in experimentation, he applied some 24 more patents, and all of them in reference to what would insight into the weapons system of the military, and therefore the military took over his secondary site, which was Gakona, and they just overran it. They took on him, all his patents, to the point that prior to his death in 2005, he saw that he did not want to be part of what they were doing, and he reneged on some of his patents, of even submitting any more patents. And of course, he succumbed in 2007. But the military took it well beyond what Bernard ever wanted. One of the things that came out of his patents was Reagan was wanting a system of protection in space, and this was called Star Wars. And it's in that process, DARPA took over everything, and including HAARP. DARPA and a company called BAE, British Aerospace, overtook even the Navy and the Air Force manipulation of the HAARP sites. And these HAARP sites became, the affiliated HAARP sites were extensions of the experiment.
Now, were the Star Wars program that Reagan had been touting, was that was built upon HAARP technology?
Yes, sir, Reed. It was absolutely all HAARP.
And like MK Ultra, I'm assuming it also still continues on today, but just under different names.
Yes. As does the HAARP is no longer HAARP. HAARP is now part of Space Fence. All the technologies that were arrived, weapon system and surveillance systems from HAARP, have now been installed into the new Space Fence system, which it was shut down at the same time the HAARP Gakona site was. But a month later, it was brought back up on a new contract with Lockheed, doing the first part of it of $914 million worth of modifications to the Space Fence, and Raytheon taking up. Raytheon was part of the system back in the beginning too. They were supposed to build the system. In fact, I was embedded with PNR Towers out of Sacramento to put up the Gakona site. All the antennas and all the rigging and everything, that was where I went into spending time up there myself. But Raytheon had started taking over the system, but then it was turned over to BAE. And
you're both of you are probably familiar with a gentleman by the name of Ben Livingston. I believe he's basically the father of weather weapons. And I've heard him interviewed, and he said back even in the Vietnam War, they can make it rain for 3 days straight. Now, my question is, especially with the Fukushima and the hurricane that hit New York, I believe a couple of years ago, a lot of people make claims when that stuff happens that it was HAARP technology. That's almost one of the first things. Anytime there's some type of an earthquake or a natural disaster, that's always brought up immediately. Was it HAARP? Was it HAARP? Do they have the kind of capabilities with HAARP to cause earthquakes like that in specific areas, or manage hurricanes to the point where they can literally steer them or direct them? Are they that advanced? Do you know?
And
Absolutely.
absolutely right. And Billy, you can talk about that too. But in the Chemtrails HAARP book, I spend a big chapter on 4 of the major events. That would be the Fukushima, the Christchurch, New Zealand, the Katrina, and the Hurricane Sandy on the East Coast. And these are tied in. The ability to steer the jet stream and to lay chemtrails along the edge of the storm system and quicken it electromagnetically is really how disaster capitalism is. I think the plan is to extend capitalism as it begins to sink with disasters. And certainly weather derivatives on Wall Street is booming via insider traders who are in touch with Monsanto and the military-industrial complex that's running HAARP system on that level. This is not the space fence level. This is the weather steering level. It's a huge moneymaker right now. And as you notice, this season so far has been pretty quiescent in many ways. What we have now is, I mean, the way I look at it in the book is that they're still in an experimental phase of running the weather and seeing what does what and making many measurements in the lower atmosphere and the upper atmosphere. It's an ongoing process of learning for them. And this summer has, where I'm living anyway, has been particularly hot and absolutely dry in the Pacific Northwest. And then, of course, in California, it appears that the drought certainly is influenced by a HAARP system, and along with one of the things they're dropping is aluminum. So that aluminum oxide is really just destroying the forests and the soil in Northern California and other parts of the country. So when I'm looking at the weather, which is only one of the agendas of 7 that the military-industrial complex has, I'm interested in what's happening in different areas of the world, but most particularly NATO countries, because I concentrated on NATO countries because I really couldn't document anything regarding other countries like China and Russia. But I do know that NATO countries, it's part of joining is that you are now chemmed. And so, Billy, what did you think about that question, about the weather systems?
Absolutely. I'll give you, for instance, prior to us even knowing of HAARP, back in 1969, Hurricane Camille came in on a alternate course that all the predictions were putting Hurricane Camille to come in the Texas coast and through New Orleans. It got offshore by 100 miles, and suddenly, after firing up the new radar sites at Dobbins Air Force Base in Georgia, at Eglin Air Force Base, which was C6, the site that I worked with, and several other super radar sites, all of a sudden, with the ideal of going out and dumping chemicals into this hurricane, all of a sudden the hurricane made a disastrous turn and came into the Gulf Coast near Biloxi, Mississippi, and all the way up through Hattiesburg. It practically wiped out the whole Gulf Coast. That was the first indications that there was a performance of electronic manipulation into hurricanes. Hurricanes are the most massive electric generator in our world, before and now. It is a massive motor generator system that makes more electrical energy than anything we know on this earth.
So, Billy,
And
are they actually able to capture that energy that it's generating? Is that kind of what they're doing, or are they just trying to take and place that big electrical storm someplace where it can do damage?
both.
Really?
You just hit both of them. One thing is to increase or decrease the amplitude of that storm. The other thing is being able to lay out patterns where this storm will have to feed into and negotiate different frontal systems that are already moved in place, like walls, where it actually plays a game of pool of bouncing off and making different parameters of attack into the inland areas.
Now we can actually see this in action, right? I mean, if we're watching the NexRad radar systems, I mean, they scrub them to a certain extent, but there are ways to actually see how they're moving these things around, isn't there?
Absolutely. If you bring up your NexRad sites, you will see that within 50 miles, there is a manipulated density change within those areas. You can actually see air densities, the ground density of the air on the ground change, and they call it radar noise. Well, it's not radar noise. It is actual density of our atmosphere being changed in those areas. The sensitivity further out than 50 miles is not as seeable. But you can see this on all NexRad sites all through the day. You will see a feathering of isolated noise, junk returns. This is part of the new NexRad systems, the new doplating, dual-phased NexRad sites. These are pulses.
Go ahead, Billy.
No, go ahead.
The thing that I don't want to lose in this very good conversation on weather and weather engineering is that in the Fukushima case, which was originally brought up, if you look at the political situation that was going on just before that triple event that ended in a terrible nuclear disaster, you will see that one of the first things on the front burner for the Japanese at that time and their new prime minister was to get the American bases out of Japan. And this, to me, in the chapter that I devote to the hurricanes in particular, or typhoons as they're called in the South Pacific, this is how it is. It's being used as a political muscle. And even though its experimentation is still ongoing, it is certainly capable of producing droughts in Iran and storms that can move into tidal waves, and no one wants that to happen to them. And in a way, just as 911, I feel, was a demonstration of the power of directed energy weapons, so was Fukushima. On the other side, our old enemy, whose government we completely rebuilt after World War II with MacArthur's help. I think that it is a terrifying prospect to governments of the world to consider that they too could have something like that happen. And so with the present move of Russia through Ukraine, there's something going on as Russia combines with China for different contracts, and now their GMOs are being disallowed in China as well as Russia. There is a move globally to counter the overreaching, unbelievable power that the United States, the powers that be that run this country we live in, have in mind for the future, have in mind to run for the future. And I'm not saying that Russia and China and other companies, I almost said corporation, other countries are not wanting this plum of power on a global scale. But I'm saying that there seems to be movement now to counter the overreaching of the United States and UK. Because you say United States, you assume it's UK as well.
Well, now, correct me if I'm wrong, but Russia and America have been cooperating on some of this HAARP technology for, when we were still in the Cold War. So it seems like there's been some cooperation in the developing of the technology anyway. Is that correct, Billy?
Oh, that's absolutely correct.
Absolutely. Yeah. With the ADM treaty being pushed underneath the door when there was no longer a Soviet Union, that agreement was no longer an article that had to be followed. And by Russia and the United States and Australia, there was a bunch of NATO countries that went together and started cooperating with this HAARPing system. And I went to over 250 different sites that were affiliated with HAARP, working on their systems, doing their antennas, modifying their tower systems, putting in new transmission lines to fit the purpose of the amount of power that they were going to utilize. Eastland came out and discovered that he could do the same thing with 1/16,000th of the power that they were playing with. His amendment was that we were actually destroying our protective ionosphere by overreaching the power limits, and that we were no longer just enveloping the Earth's process of this system, but this was going beyond into outer space.
I've got a question, if you don't mind, for either one of you. I really just want to say we so much appreciate both of you joining us today. This is just riveting information. I mean that. We're all electrical beings. I think we'd agree. That there's studies out that people that live closer to power lines have a higher rate of cancer because we are electrical and they've got all that power running over their head. You've seen the rates of cancer increase tremendously. I mean, in all of our lifetimes, it's just been off the charts. Do you think with 250 of these HAARP sites around the world, I don't want to put something that's not there, but do you think that this contributes at least in some manner? It can't be good for our bodies, all this HAARP stuff floating, getting shot all around the atmosphere, right?
Well, let's put it this way. In the mid-'80s, and late 70s, when cell phones towers started being put up, there was emphasis on changing the frequencies of microwave systems. The government paid to swing all microwave systems to a new frequency band. Grounds were being relieved from power systems and cable systems and telephone systems at a spacing of 7,285 feet, 82 feet, I'm sorry, which is a full wavelength of the proposed HAARPing pulses. These created a system whereby transmission lines of electrical, transmission lines of telephone systems, railroad systems were broken up into these multiple lengths of this wavelength. All these systems work with the frequencies of this pulse that was being utilized by the HAARPing systems. Inclusive with that was the actual cellular systems of high frequency up in the 2 gigahertz band to provide data links for all the HAARPing systems.
Wow. And then we have to add to that I know in chapter 2 in the book, I go into Eastland's 1985 patent, and with Clifford Carnicom's help, we went over it and deconstructed it to show not only that chemtrails are part of the harping, the original HAARP concept, and are necessary to it. But the idea of cyclotron resonance and how this pulse that Billy's talking about, this pulse can have layered frequencies on it, and those what they needed in order to get this whole system really playing, and it's, you know, angels don't play this harp, to really pluck that harp string. They needed an ionized atmosphere, and that is, to me, yes, the power lines and the cell towers and the cell phones up, you know, transmitters up against your brain. All of this is a disaster waiting to happen. But the main thing now that's on my mind is that our entire atmosphere, with this hazy, smoggy cloud cover that's artificial, primarily artificially created, is what we're breathing, what we're eating, what we're drinking. And this ionized atmosphere is basically an electrified atmosphere. It's capable of wireless transmissions beyond belief. And our bodies, including the animals, are simply not evolved for this kind of technology, and certainly not as an entire environment that the military even calls life now a battle space.
Wow. Now we're going to be coming up to our hard break now, and we'd love to have you guys on with us through the second hour, however long you can stay. We're happy just to have you on. I would really like to get into the Morgellons a little bit on the second hour, because that's really what frightens me the most, but we're kind of coming up to the station break here. Are you guys able to stick with us a little bit through the second hour?
Sure. Yeah, I want to talk about the Morgellons, definitely.
All right. Well, we're going into break now, so stick with us, folks. We'll see you on the other side of the break.
Revolution Radio. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
All right, and welcome back to Hour 2 of the Liberty Brothers Radio Show. Again, folks, this is listener-supported radio, and you get so much great information here, from Agenda 21 to aliens to HAARP to it all. I mean, it really, you cover the whole spectrum with the different shows that you get here, and we are growing leaps and bounds. But in order to have the servers we need and the space we need, all the bandwidth and whatnot, it takes a certain amount of money, and we've got 5 days left to reach our $1,900 goal this month. We're at $1,637 right now. So please, if you love what you get from Revolution Radio, please do your part. Vote with your wallet. They've got some great items you can buy, from seed vaults and prepping items, med kits, to just donation. Please go to freedomslips.com and click on the donate link, and we greatly appreciate you doing your part to help keep us on the air. So we are back with our two great guests. We are talking about HAARP, chemtrails, mind control, all kinds of very disturbing things. So welcome back to the show, guys.
Thanks. I'm here.
All right. Well, again, we've got Elana Freeland, who just released a new book, which is entitled Chemtrails, HAARP, and the Full Spectrum Dominance of Planet Earth. And in one of your chapters, you talk about Monsanto and GMOs and kind of how they tie into things. And of course, with the what in the world are they spraying video that's up on YouTube, a lot of people have seen. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's free on YouTube. They talk a lot about how they are geoengineering to make the world more a better bed, so to say, for these GMO seeds that are better suited for an alkali environment. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, Monsanto, in my estimation, appears to me to be rather like a Raytheon corporation. I mean, everywhere I look, as I study the underbelly of the military-industrial complex, I come across either Raytheon or Monsanto. And people may think that they're in a different business, but they're really not. They're in the business of control of food and control of life, and the two go together. Now, as you know, Monsanto did come out with an aluminum-resistant seed and fertilizer, and obviously Monsanto is an insider. Monsanto knows what's cooking regarding the HAARP chemtrails system. And I think that we need to keep our eyes on this and remember that corporate life now not only is a matter of mergers into gigantic entities, but it is also a diversifying entity, because each of these gigantico corporations, it has its fingers in many, many pies. I mean, Lockheed alone it would be surprising to you if you go to corporatewatch.org and look at Lockheed to see what it's into now. It is mind-boggling. So to me, Monsanto, and I've put the word out everywhere, if anyone hears about Monsanto and what other things it is into, please let me know, because I'm trying to figure out what it is. I personally think it's much more than a corporation. It's something else. And if I sound mysterious, forgive me, but it is mysterious to me, just as Raytheon is mysterious. Raytheon is in charge of huge projects down in Antarctica right now. And I would dearly love to know more about these two very primary corporations involved with this whole HAARP and chemtrails affair.
You know, I really thought something was amiss when they did the seed vault. You know, when they locked all those heirloom seeds away, I kind of thought to myself, they're going to try something and they're not sure if it's going to work. And if it wrecks everything, they're going to want to make sure that they got all the original seeds. I mean, am I way off the pale on that, or am I close?
No, I think you're absolutely right. And those seeds, as I know it, are in Colorado, in what I call the belly of the beast, and they are locked away. A lot of people have bought land in Colorado. It's as if everyone's sort of avoiding the coastal areas, in my opinion. So there is some sort of, I would go further than saying that there might be errors, which of course there will. Every bid for empire in the history of the world has failed, as you know, eventually. But the price that is paid by all for those ventures is extreme sometimes. And so my question is, do they know that there will be agendas that are going to make the coastal areas different? I know that Virginia right now, in their city governments and state government level, are planning for a loss of coast and trying to figure out how they're going to reconfigure. It's just as it was in the Hurricane Sandy, when the ports of New York and New Jersey were trashed, and lots of people were moved out of there, and now those ports are being reconfigured, just as the international port down in New Orleans has been reconfigured by Katrina. So there is some, what is being called on the net, terraforming going on. There are some big plans for reconfiguring the earth, because these people who are doing this believe themselves to be as gods. And they now have the weapon of choice that Tesla never wanted to happen. They now have it in place, and it's all revved up and ready to go.
You know, if you look at Agenda 21, real quick, if you look at Agenda 21, how they want to pull people in, you know, into compact cities, and you're talking about wiping out people on the coastline, and by default, if there's nobody on the coastline, they're going to have to move more towards, you know, the quote-unquote flyover states. You know, that sounds like it could be a first step towards this Agenda 21 plan that they have, is moving people away from the shores sort of in closer, more compact. What do you think about that?
Oh, definitely. I know Agenda 21 is involved in this because it's coming from that elite level. I mean, just remember that there are those levels of the Council on Foreign Relations, the Bilderbergers, the Trilateral Commission, Carnegie Group. I mean, all of these brain banks and money banks are involved in reconfiguring an Earth for the transhumanist future that will serve the elite class, the tiny elite class, and bring the rest of us into a hive mind of production. I mean, I haven't seen any proof of it, but I could imagine that it would have to do with low use of resources. It's kind of like the very awkward smart meters that they keep trying to put up on people's houses that people now are really sussing out as being what lies behind cancer and illness and nausea. And they are, trying to get rid of them or put aluminum foil around them, etc. I mean, those smart meters are remote controlled, supposedly to just read your meter and see what your energy consumption is, but it can just as well be there to shut off your energy consumption or know exactly what you're using your energy for. Is it the computer? Is it the refrigerator? Because now all these things are going to be made smart, right? They're going to have chips in them that can be communicated with as well, just like the biological hybrids, I like to call them, that are piggybacked onto the polymers coming down on us from the chemtrails that we have all breathed and drunk and eaten and that are in our bloodstream now. They too have microprocessors in them, they have sensors in them, and they can be remotely communicated with.
It's like smart dust.
Very much like smart dust. In fact, smart dust is the name of the game on the Earth because they have released many, many sensors in smart dust. And I think people need to understand that we are all now petri dishes. And to the degree that we go to the doctor or the hospital out of ignorance or out of our own fear of illness, all those records can be hacked into and are part of this vast experiment. I mean, we've said that cell phones are an experiment, putting transmitters up to your brain, but really the larger experiment that cell phones are only a part of is exactly this ionized atmosphere.
You talk about transhumanism. Are they literally? It sounds almost with this nanotechnology. Are they trying to? And I don't want to sound crazy when I say this. I'm just going to ask it. It sounds like they're almost trying to turn us into machines in some way, slowly. Is that?
Well,
yes.
I think cyborg would be the word. I mean, I don't know if you've listened to any of the Singularity videos and read the articles and the essays put up by Ray. What's his name? His last
Ray
name?
Kurzweil.
Yeah, Kurzweil. Or read about transhumanism. I mean, the idea is it's a military idea. The military has human soldiers. They're pitiful to the military. They're fallible. They're weak. They get tired. They have to sleep. They have to be fed. All of this is a real drag. And so if you're going to have warfare forever and you've made the entire Earth your battle space, then what you would be thinking is how to enhance at least your soldiers first, and then possibly all of humanity, so that you can have them doing something efficient and have them not using up so many resources that you would like to keep available. So I think it totally makes sense. I don't think it sounds paranoid at all, given how cloning is going and how stem cell research is going, how genetic engineering is going. I mean, genetic engineering, if you look at the Wall Street numbers, I mean, it's skyrocketing. Everyone's investing in it because they all know this is the future.
But
so I don't think it's paranoid at all.
unfortunately, though, anytime we seem to bring up any of these subjects to try to talk about them in a rational way, you're just labeled as plain crazy. I mean, even just let's move into Morgellons disease a little bit, since we're talking about the nanotechnology and whatnot. If you look up Morgellons disease on Wikipedia, it actually says Morgellons is a condition whose sufferers have delusional belief that they're infested with disease-causing agents described as things like insects, parasites, hairs, or fibers. But in reality, no such things are present. I mean, that's a straight lie. They've got such disinformation out there about this. I mean, it just... Can we talk a little... And this, for me, really is the most terrifying aspect of all of this. To think that we all here, at least in the NATO nations, and I would assume around the world, have already been bioengineered, and that we are absolutely have these little nanotechnology things in our bodies, and the people with Morgellons seem to be the ones that are resisting it. Can you talk about Morgellons and its tie into all of this?
Sure, because the chapter 8 in the book is entirely devoted to Clifford Carnicom's work, because Clifford has a website at carnicominstitute.org wherein he has hundreds of papers that he's written about everything he's done. He's a painstaking scientist. As I told you, he's a close friend of mine. And I admire that kind of science from my biology undergraduate days. And he has everything there, but it's over. I felt it was overwhelming for people to go to the site. I mean, like, wow, where do I start? I mean, and then the pictures, the photographs of the fibers in the petri dishes, etc. So I sat down and wrote a chapter about his research and had him go over it to make sure that I had said things correctly. And I think Clifford has been working on this problem since the early to mid 90s. And he was living in Santa Fe then, and having to do all of his science experimentation on a shoestring. No one was backing him up. And when I think the first step that was really crucial for him, and I'm not saying it's the only delivery system, by the way, and I underscore that. I have met Morgellons sufferers who have suffered from it for years. And I don't know if Billy's there, but Billy talks about how Morgellons is really what has gotten a lot of his classmates from when he was going to school in Florida and when he was working at Eglin Air Force Base. So Morgellons what it is not a skin pathogen, but because it erupts from the skin, and you can see the little wires with black, I believe they're black, red, and blue heads on them, which all indicate not only geoengineering, but each of those have a different function, Clifford Carnicom has discovered. It is actually a blood-borne pathogen because it has been programmed to eat iron. It loves iron. And what it hates the most is acidity. So all of this was relatively unknown as Clifford was trying to contrive ways to first prove that with a HEPA filter and various other collection containers to determine absolutely that Morgellons was being delivered by chemtrails. And he was able to confirm that, and I sort of give the jump to the chase version in the chapter 8 of the book. And then the next step was basically to see what this little critter really is, what its components are. And at first he was able to finally determine there are 5 basic components to it. But the one that is the most important, he has now had to name on his own, because all of the requests and specimens he has sent to the to the CDC and other agencies, the EPA, all have been ignored, and a year and a half later sent back to him unanalyzed. So he has named this, what now should be renamed from Morgellons to the cross-domain bacteria. And what he means by that, by naming it cross-domain, is that this little geoengineered critter that we have all breathed in, drunk, and eaten, that has been delivered to us on the backs of polymers sent by chemtrails, these critters cross all 3 domains of human life. And it used to be that we had 7 domains, but those were all narrowed down in the early 70s to 3 domains. So what I'm saying is, it is a plant, animal, and mineral. It is all 3 domains. And it, as I said, it has been programmed to eat iron, and I mean that. I mean it has been programmed. I mean it has no real life of its own in a way, except it can couple with the various cells of our bodies, not just with our hemoglobin. And that is key. And when you said, I think you were indicating that the body, those who have lesions, are attempting to throw off the Morgellons, the cross-domain bacteria. I think you might be right. I mean, for a while, I was really scratching my head over that. Why don't? Because I saw my blood cells under the microscope. I saw the cross-domain bacteria burying its head in my erythrocytes, but I don't have the lesions, and I don't have the below my skin scratchy, itchy feeling that they're calling, parasitosis, dementia parasitosis, or whatever they're calling. It's nonsense. So maybe it is that. Maybe some people break out in lesions and are the body is attempting to throw them off. It is also true that I've interviewed a couple of Morgellons sufferers, and I would say that their immune system, in the 2 cases I'm thinking of, because I've interviewed maybe 7 or 8 Morgellons people, I've lost my train of thought. What did I say?
We're talking about different Morgellons patients.
Yes, and their idea was, I'm sorry, I lost that train of thought, because can you hear the sound? Is it still all right? It sounds like lumpy.
Does it? Maybe something's happening there.
Okay.
Now I'm beginning to hear it, actually.
Okay, so that gives you an idea, and I do have here with me, I have the book, and then I also have Clifford's 6 strategies to counter the cross-domain bacteria. Did you want me to read those?
Yeah, actually that feeds right into my next question, so please do. Okay.
So, it may be different now. I just visited him last month he and his wife are living in Idaho now. And I got to see his makeshift laboratory where he must have had, 50 Petri dishes and fish tanks and things going with Morgellons. He now can culture them very easily. And he's working on seeing, like he was doing electrolysis in in the fish tank, to see what can ameliorate them, what can stop them from growth, stop them from reproducing, because they reproduce in an acidic environment like crazy. What it is about them that the microprocessors in them make so sensitive to electromagnetism, wireless. I mean, that partially is why people suffer so much from them and have that itchy under the skin. If they could go away from their electric environment, I've been telling people to just unplug everything at night, especially their router. So here's what he says. This is a few months old. 6 strategies for countering the Morgellons organism assaulting our red blood cells and devouring the iron in our blood. 1. Alkalinize the blood. 2. Antioxidation. 3. increase the utilization and absorption of existing iron. 4, inhibit the growth of iron-consuming bacterial archaeal-like forms. And that would include fungi and chlamydia and things. 5, improve the flow of bile to further alkalinize the blood and aid the digestive process. 6, detoxify the liver. So there are a few there. And remember, the reason our iron is so crucial is that it carries our oxygen. And we are, according to the last statistic I looked at, we are now living with 16% less oxygen than we were 10 years ago.
Wow. It sounds like I actually have got a Kangen water generator, an alkali water generator I've been using for the last couple of months, which I've got to say has really made a difference. But it actually creates an alkali water with microstructure. It sounds like that might actually do some good there.
It might. I mean, at this point, we're really collecting data because, I mean, it may sound very depressing to people, but to me, what's new? Well, we have a government that has used us as guinea pigs. The human radiation experiments in the 50s, when they were injecting babies and small children with radiation to see what would happen. And those radiation the hearings were finally brought in 1995. There was the Church Committee that attempted to stop the CIA from pursuing MKUltra, the 149 sub-projects they had, in 1975 with Frank Church from Idaho. And where did that go? Well, you know, pretty much nowhere. So we have a long history here of being used and exploited. And we are very, you know what I love about Americans? I just recently lived in the UK, and I was so happy to get back to my crazy, violent country. Americans are the best in emergencies. When they realize something is wrong and that they need to act on it, they are excellent in that. And I appeal to Americans to not look at knowledge as not doing anything. We need to understand how this tech works. And there are 7 agendas behind it. I've only named about 3 so far in the last hour and a half.
Well, real quick, Elana, let me break in here. We got to let Billy go here shortly. And before he goes, I wanted to ask him, and then we'll come right back to this. Billy, thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate you taking the time. And before we let you go, we were talking a little bit about things we can do. You know, a lot of times a good portion of our show is devoted to prepping and ways we can, you know, try to prepare for things. And honestly, this seems so insurmountable that I kind of lose hope thinking about it. But you would be the guy to know, what can we do to help prepare for what's coming and help protect ourselves and our families from some of these things that are being perpetrated. Elana talked a little bit about it. Can you give us a few pointers before you go, and then tell us about any websites or whatnot you may want to get out to our listeners?
Well, one of the few things that can be done is to increase your immune system, build your immune system up, because one of the things these attacks are doing, both frequency-wise and Morgellon-wise and the chemtrail-wise, is it's taking down the immune systems. And in order to compensate for that, you have to get into some of these light cleansers and keep your body cleansed, number one. Not to the point, your body needs the minerals that are in it. You have to build those natural minerals that are needed. These people who are thinking that they're protecting themselves with taking great quantities of iodine, they're in for a big surprise. In doing so, you knock down your immune system to other things. You open yourselves not to the radioactive components, but to the immune system itself, diversifying the ideal that you can be attacked by almost anything. And Morgellons worked on defacing your immune system.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Billy. We really appreciate your time, and hopefully we can have you on again sometime.
Okay, I got to get ready. I got to go. I got a doctor who wants to look inside me again.
All right. Well, good luck
Billy,
with
thanks so
everything.
much, Billy. Really appreciate you coming on.
Okay.
All righty.
All right. Elana, you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay,
Okay.
great. I have a question for you if you don't mind. I've always wondered this, and I don't want to sound like a smart aleck when I say this. I really don't know. I mean, the people that spray these things in the air, I mean, they breathe the air as well. I mean, I don't want to sound funny, but do they just go inside when they're spraying chemtrails? Do they live in such an environment that they live sort of in a sealed environment? I mean, they breathe air just like we do. How are they able to not catch some of these same things that we catch?
Oh, it's a great question, and it's an important question. First, I have three answers, and I'm sure there are more, because usually it's asked in terms of the elites. Now, as far as the pilots spraying it, you know that some of the jets, a lot of the jets we're seeing now are being are drones. There is no pilot on board. However, when pilots are involved, which they are in commercial airlines that are carrying these sprays, and they're given instructions on when to spray them. I mean, I'm sure they've bought into the story that it's solar radiation management, geoengineering essential to ameliorate the global warming, etc. But pilots are getting sick right and left because some of those fumes from what they're spraying end up in the cockpit. So, there are Sylvain Henry, who runs a show out of Ontario, out of Quebec County, Provence, in Montreal or somewhere in there. Sylvain has 7 pilots, all anonymous, who often go on his show, and he has these radiothons, 24 hours. I don't know how he does it. And I've talked to one of the pilots, and some of them are waking up, and they know, and they are girding up their loins to go public. And it seems that they've signed confidentiality agreements, so they're in a bit of a bind. All right, then there's the elites. Why don't they care about their kids? Well, I spent years for the Sub Rosa America series studying elites, and I've known a few quite well in my life. So I would say that they don't care about their children the way that you and I do. And many elite children their life is made very tough so that they can rule with dispassion, you could say. They've been traumatized, even tremendously traumatized, some of them. So that's a possibility. These men have dedicated their lives to this vision, this dream of world power, this new world order. They may belong to brotherhoods that require absolute secrecy and obedience because of their degree of attainment. They know, but they're willing to sacrifice their children and their lives for this possibility of world power attainment. Okay, that's one. Another one is, don't forget the need to know compartmentalized basis of most of the research that's done on these things, of many sciences now. Most of the scientists working don't know what the right hand is doing because they're in the left hand. Some of them who do become whistleblowers always say, I had no idea what my research was going toward. I was never told. So there's that. They don't know what's being dropped on them and their families. And then there's the how the chemtrails in the sky, as you'll notice. And by the way, I think a new delivery system is in the offing here. And I can't say more on that, but I have heard rumors and of a way to disperse the aerosols where you can't see them at all. And also what's being called the chem bomb. It seems to be another possibility. So, okay, so there's a chemtrail, and you're looking up at the sky, and you see that there's one chunk that's missing. It's as though the switch went off for X amount of miles up there at 20 or 30,000 feet, and then the switch goes back on later.
I took a picture of that very thing just this morning.
Right, and in that case, because it's so mathematically accurate, the drift factor and the altitude, etc., it is very possible that people are buying in for a significant amount of cash to have their area pass by. So those are my ideas on that. Yeah.
Wow. Can you go? You were talking about the agendas, and you had gone over a couple of those. Can you talk? Can you continue on? I'd like to hear what those agendas are, because
now these also are from Clifford Carnicom, but I agree with him. These are the 7 agendas that he and I have both discerned. Number 1, weather and environmental modification. I talked a little bit about that. Certainly weather systems, and that would include political blackmail, political pressure on various nations, at least in NATO. And environmental modification would be like what happened with Sandy and Katrina, where our coasts, our ports are being restructured and redone. All right, number 2, electromagnetic operations. Ionization of the upper atmosphere is drawing charged particles into our lower atmosphere. And that certainly is how HAARP works, how microwaving the ionosphere, you bubble it out. Our atmosphere, including our jet stream, is sucked up into it. Many electrons are forced from their atoms, and it's all a stir, and then they slide down the fireman's pole of our magnetic lines, of which there are billions, and that's cyclotron resonance, and they are all pulsed for various uses and steered for various uses once they come down into our lower atmosphere. Okay, number 3, military operations. Weapons. Yes, the weather is used as a weapon, and certainly by having an atmosphere that you can communicate wirelessly through with ease 24/7 gives you the advantage of weaponizing your communication systems and giving instructions to drones, etc. Number 4, biological operations. We talked a little about Morgellons. It's certainly not the only biological experiment going on and being piggybacked on the polymers, or however it's being locked into the chemtrail components. But the certainly nanotechnology and smart dust, as you called it, is certainly a huge factor here in biological weapons. I mean, if you have the frequency of a disease, you don't need to broadcast the virus or the bacteria. You simply broadcast the frequency. All right. Number 5.
Wait, just a second there. That's a big, huge piece of information there. Does that mean that they can basically either generate the disease, or is it basically it's just going to create the same symptoms using that vibration?
Well, everything on Earth has its frequency, right? Ours is the Schumann resonance, 7.83 and hertz. And if you can broadcast a frequency, you can then, yes, stimulate the disease. Yes, that would be how it would work. I mean, I know that we've been taught that everything is due to a virus or bacteria, but what we haven't been taught along with that picture is how our immune system plays into that. And a weakened immune system will become the soil in which anything can be planted.
Absolutely.
This is the problem. Yeah. And we need to, I mean, that's what I was saying before you had caught Billy before he was going, is that we need to understand that learning, we don't need, most people in America, the last time they had science was in high school. We need to start learning from each other and various books. I mean, my book is maybe a little beginning, but there are many other books that can be read to
I don't know about that. I think it's pretty technical. I know there's some things I've had to go back and reread.
Yes, I mean, it takes a while to get the hang of this. But once you get the hang of it, you can see that there are things you can understand, and there's things you can't understand. I mean, I'm no plasma physicist, that's for sure, and I'm reading a book on plasma right now, so I can at least implant the ideas, and I'll probably have to reread the book, because I find that the mind, to understand big systems like this kind of science, the electromagnetic science, you need about 3 times, a passover of about 3 times. And then you're like, oh yeah, okay. You make the mental picture. Once you have the mental picture, you've got it. So that's what I strive for too, because I'm not a scientist. Okay, so let me go on to the other 3. The 5th one is planetary geophysical operations, altered plasma, and plasma, by the way, it's the 4th state of matter, and that is what they're deriving from the ionosphere. They're making plasma, and the plasma is able to keep our atmosphere sort of thickened now. It's thickened, it's a medium. It's something that electrons can be moved around in. Altered plasma means dramatic Earth changes via the troposphere and magnetosphere. And as we know now, the magnetosphere is weakened, and we're being told it's only because of a certain solar cycle. I have my doubts about that. It is very difficult sometimes to tell how much is actual, real science that's coming from NASA and NOAA, and what is being disseminated as a disinformation cover story for this tech that's coming online. Okay, that's 5. Now, 6 is surveillance, as Edward Snowden told us, though I'd known about it for 10 years. Everyone on Earth is now under surveillance for the sake of what the military calls C4. And C4 is, according to the military, is command, control, communications, and computers. I actually think that there's another meaning for one of those of the C4, but I don't want to go public with it yet. I have to do a little more research. All right, then the final 7th one, which you will probably find quite interesting, seems to be to build an atmosphere in which they can detect exotic propulsion systems.
Wow.
And those exotic propulsion systems can be Earth created. In other words, when we brought the Nazis over and under paperclip, we certainly brought over their plans for anti-gravity exotic propulsion systems. And it can also mean the plasma, I'm calling it plasma because it seems to fit, the plasma bodies of various ships that we are seeing in our atmosphere as UFOs.
So kind of talking about the advanced technology that we may have developed on our own, then also dealing with some of the advanced technology we're seeing that we just simply can't identify, that could either be extraterrestrial or interdimensional.
Yes, exactly.
That is actually very, very interesting to me.
Yes, and I don't cover that at all in this book, but I will in the next one. Those are the 7 agendas, and I think they're pretty accurate.
It sounds like you may actually be friends with Dr. Rima Lebo. I'm not sure if you know who she is.
Well, I know of her. No, I'm not friends with her, but I've seen some of her YouTubes.
Yeah, you guys sound very similar in a lot of things that you say. Another thing too, you mentioned the Schumann resonance. I had heard, I just had a conversation with someone about this yesterday, believe it or not. I haven't said that word in probably, 2 or 3 years, and I've said it twice in 2 days. You know how that goes. I've heard that it's considered the heartbeat of the Earth from what I've heard, and I heard that speeding up some. Have you heard that also? And if so, what does that mean?
Well, yes, I have heard that, and I know that the Schumann resonance, in order to do a transhumanist future, the Schumann resonance is not just the human resonance, it's also the resonance of the entire life of all biological species, So if they were able to change the frequency, change the Schumann frequency, what would that exactly mean? And at this point, I do believe that is in the hopper. I do believe that is exactly what they want to do. And they are still experimenting with that. I mean, right now, one of the pulses we're getting, let's see if I can find it real quick. Clifford Carnicom went through this in the chapter where I cover Bernard Eastland's patent. And Eastland mentioned cyclotron resonance many times. So again, I'll remind you what I said. They're pulsing the planet, and it's an even pulse. It's in an ELF. It's extra low frequency, very long waves. In fact, waves so long, they go all the way around the circumference of the Earth, okay? So that's a done deal. They have to keep the atmosphere ionized in order to do that, which is why they're spending billions on chemtrails. And I mean, we haven't even talked about where those finances are from, but you may have had James P. Farrell on your show where he talks about breakaway civilizations. I found his book very interesting. I read one of his books in which he's talking about an alternate financing system that has nothing to do with tax money and nothing to do with Wall Street, really. Okay, so the cyclotron resonance, here's what Dr. Robert O. Becker says in his book. It's very important, Cross Currents, The Perils of Electropollution, The Promise of Electromedicine. He says, cyclotron resonance is a mechanism of action that enables very low-strength electromagnetic fields acting in concert with the Earth's geomagnetic field to produce major biological effects by concentrating the energy in the applied field upon specific particles, such as the biologically important ions of sodium, calcium, potassium, and lithium. All right, that's Becker. Now just keep in mind, we're still talking about the Schumann resonance here. All right, then Clifford Carnicom did some work which took a few years. He checked it and checked it and rechecked it and rechecked it, in which he measured the biological, Carnicom examined cyclotronic resonance as it relates to the relationship between an atmospheric ELF harmonic he detected and the potassium ion. And this is from Clifford. The fifth harmonic of the ELF that has been repeatedly measured over a period of several years corresponds to the cyclotronic resonant frequency of potassium. This fifth harmonic, along with numerous other harmonics, is a regular component of the ELF radiation that is under measurement. Carnicom's, and then this is me, Carnicom's assertion that the potassium ion is being targeted. We're talking targeted here, not accidental, not, oh, look at that, targeted for biological interference within people over large regions of the Earth's surface is very serious. He follows it up with spectral analysis and equations, after which he drops the bombshell. And this is Carnicom. It can also be expected that variations in the magnetic field of the Earth can lead to other potential resonance conditions in various regions or latitudes. It is therefore not unexpected to find large regional health issues that will correlate with variations in the magnetic field strength of the Earth. Certain ions are expected to be disrupted in some areas of the globe more than others. Okay? If they can hit the potassium ions in our bodies, if they can pulse that, and say then they wanted to change our frequency, could they change the entire Schumann resonance frequency in an area of the Earth as a weapon? Oh, I think they can. So that's the problem with this space fence that's coming. That is going to solidify the system, and we are going to be living in a gulag, an electromagnetic gulag. Will it mean that you and I, well, let's not say you and I, because look what we're doing. Would it be that my neighbors here up in Washington State will feel unfree? Not necessarily. No, not necessarily at all. Maybe they'll like it because it'll be peaceful. It'll be, they won't be political. They won't be bothered by it.
It'll be the
Well,
Matrix.
Aldous Huxley said that one day their goal, of course, is for people to love their servitude. You're probably familiar with that.
Exactly. And already in some of the people of the younger generation, I already see that. They don't know what the big deal is that I devote my life to here.
Well, yeah. That's why we're trying to wake people up here. Sounds like we really need to get Carnicom on to talk to
yes,
because that he just sounds like someone that I would love to listen to as well. So maybe we can work on getting him on the show here shortly.
Yes. And you got, okay, now before I go, and I am going to go now, you guys are taking my voice. I want to remind people I'm on tour, and did you run through all the places?
I did, and I will actually put that into the chat room right now, and we can, if you'd like to run through them again, please do, and please give out any websites, Facebook, Twitter, anything you'd like to promote there, and then also let people know how to get your book. I'd love to carry your book on our website and have a link on it because I think it's important people read it.
Well, that'd be great. Okay, so for the book has, by the way, its own Facebook page, which Billy's constantly feeding me, and I'm feeding Billy, and it has a lot of new stuff up every day. We're putting new stuff up, and it's called Chemtrails, HAARP, and the Full Spectrum Dominance of Planet Earth. It's a book Facebook page. All right, there's that. Now, as far as the tour goes, sorry, I didn't say the rest. So Amazon, you can get it at Amazon. As you said, you got it on your mobile. You can get it in an ebook form. You can write to Feral House or go to the site Feral House for the book, and they still have some signed copies there that they're selling. Feral House has over 100 distributors around here and in Europe. So the one place it doesn't have distributors that I really wish it did was Australia, because I admire the Australians and New Zealanders so much. They are such activists and they're so feisty. I'm a member of the Contrail, which I highly recommend to people. It has a lot of other stuff that some of which I'm not interested in, but it has wonderful photos of down under chemtrails. So anyway, there's that pitch. I will be in Taos on September 10, Santa Fe on September 12, Dunsmuir, California, right by Shasta, on the 18th, Shasta on the 19th, Ashland at the Ashland Book Festival on the 20th, speaking in Ashland itself on the 22nd, maybe Wairika on the 23rd, Bend, Oregon the 24th, Sisters, Oregon the 25th. And then on the 27th is the great global march against chemtrails around the globe, September 27.
What is that?
Well, if you go, just go and look it up. It is, we've had them before. It's where everyone is out protesting. They have their signs up. They have their banners up. There are speeches in some places. I mean, it varies according to the activism of the place. And truthfully, Europe has been much more active than we have. It's now had its fifth, it's had at least 5 conferences on chemtrails themselves. And it's had many weather conferences through the EU and through the European Parliament. But they have felt that in America, we just have not done anything. And our problem in America is that we're such a large nation, and we are all we're networking. And we're networking pretty well through the internet, but we're not really centralizing in any way that, Dane Wigington goes everywhere and speaks. And is fanning the flames of the fire, right? And I guess that's what I'm going to be doing as well. But what we really could use is a little more centralization of some sort so that we really know what the right hand and left hand are doing. And the Global March Against Chemtrails is completely free will. In one way, it's kind of nice, isn't it? It's democratic. It's go for it. Do what you are going to do, where you're going to do it, and then publicize it on the internet. That's where we're at now. Okay. And the book coming out was a great, was great, I don't know, great, a happiness to the Europeans that I have been in touch with for years, who have been waiting, you know, and have been very frustrated with me and others for not doing anything, quote unquote. And now at least they can't criticize me for that. And I think that's all I have. I don't have a website yet for the book. I know people tell me I should have one. If people want to contact me, they can contact me through you. And if you want to handle the book on your site, can I count on you to just contact Feral House and ask them how to do that? Because I don't have a clue.
Sure. We can either do it through Amazon or we can do it directly through them. So we'll figure out how we can do that. I'll make contact.
Okay, great. And I appreciate that.
I'll shoot you an email after this show, and we'll talk about it a little bit. So thank you so much for your time, and really thank you so much for putting the time in to do this book, because it's really important we get this information out. Vitally important.
Thank you so much.
Elana, great interview. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, guys. All right, guys, we will see you tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel.